Okay, all right. So the lesson today is about inverse functions, right? All right, and you guys know that an inverse function is where you take something, right? Okay, and then you turn your. What's the first thing you do on an inverse function? What is it you find? What is it you do first?
You want the x.
You trade the x's and the y's. Okay, so here we're doing example number 1, right? Okay, and what you do is here's the original function, y equals 3x minus 5, right? So you're going to trade places with the x and the y, right? If I remember, we did this first semester. So here's x and y being traded places, right? Okay, now what do you have to do next? Add the 5 over, right? You're going to get y by itself. Add the 5 over. Here we go. There's that. Okay, what are you going to do next? Divide by 3, right? Divide everything by 3. Okay. All right. So now, here's the thing. So the answer is y equals, right, x plus 5 all over 3. That's the inverse. Okay. But there's a second way to write it. Okay. So the other way you can write it is y equals, okay, now tell me, how would you write this? 1/3. Very good. 1x divided by 3. 1/3 x plus 5/3. Right. And that's the other way you could write it. And if you're going to ask me, does it matter which way I write it? The answer is no, except if you get a multiple choice question, right? You got to be able to understand it. If you get this answer, it's the same as that answer right there, right? So if it's multiple choice, like it doesn't matter with me, for response, it doesn't matter which way you write this, but they both mean the same thing, right? Okay, so everybody remember all this. Once again, because this is kind of old stuff for you guys. Okay, then what we talked about when we did this first semester, right? Then what we talked about is this. If you graph the original function and get these values, right? Okay, so here you see x is 0, y is 6, x is 1, y is 4, so on and so on. When you graph the inverse, what do you do with those points? Yeah, you flip them, right? You trade places. So remember, 0, 6 becomes 6, 0. 1, 4 becomes 4, 1. 2, 2, 2, 2. 3, 0 becomes 0, 3. Remember we're doing all that? First semester, yeah, you guys all shaking your heads. Great. Okay, now do you remember this? When you graph the blue points, which go to the function here, okay, and then you want to graph the inverse points, right? It's like taking the point and reflecting it over the line y equals x. Do you remember that? So it's all it is taking the points and then reflecting them over the line, right? So that's always the line of reflection, and the inverse goes over that line, okay? So all those things, like I said, we talked about all this first semester. This is all old stuff for you guys. Any questions so far? All right, so let me stop there. All right, so now here comes the first thing. The first thing is, let's look at an inverse function, right? Look at this situation right here. Here is the graph y equals x squared, right? The blue line, okay, the blue parabola. You're going to take that and reflect it over the line y equals x. So it becomes a red parabola. Make sense? Okay. Same thing over here. Now here's something. We have yet to graph cubics. That's coming. That's going to come soon. But a cubic basically is like a snake. It's like a wave, right? Here's this snake, okay? That's the blue y equals x cubed. Okay, it looks like this. Okay? If we reflect that over the line y equals x, right, it will become this red wave, right? Like that, a red snake. Okay? So that's what it looks like when you do reflections with a cubic, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and do this now. All right, we want you to find the inverse of f of x equals x squared. Okay? So step number 1, we're going to write down y equals x squared, right? All right, now what are you going to do with the x's and the y's? Trade places, right? Okay, just like you did first semester, trade places. So here's x equals y squared. Okay, now you got to get y by itself. What would you do? Square root it, right? You're going to square root it. So you're going to square root both of these, right? Like this. And you're going to get what? Y equals square root of x. You got it. There you go. And that's the inverse right there. Okay? Now, here's the thing. Over here, you're going to see, well, we want you to do this for x is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, normally when Mr. Henning made all these worksheets, right, years and years ago, right, he's always going to tell you what it's going to be. So he's going to say, okay, let's make x greater than or equal to 0 on this, okay? Don't worry about this. You never have to do stuff like that, okay? You just got to be able to give me the inverse. The inverse is y equals the square root of x. Okay, everybody understand so far? Okay, now let's stop the film question. All right, here comes this. First thing. Oh, let me say this also. I'm sorry. So this is a silly thing to say. You guys know what that means right there. What does that mean? That means inverse, right? So you understand. I would always say find the inverse. You understand? If you see this written down, right, like this, right? That means that is the that I'm asking you find the inverse, right? F to the negative 1 of x means find the inverse, or that is the inverse, right? Just want to make sure. I know we did that first semester, but we want to review that. Okay, back to this. We're doing number 8, right? Okay, so here we go. Here's the initial. Y equals 16 25 x squared. Okay, what's step number 1? Yeah, okay, right. So switch the x and the y, right? So here we go. We're going to switch x and y. Here it goes. Switching x and y. Like that. Okay, now remember, you want to get y by itself. What would you do next? Times it by the reciprocal. There you go. Multiply by reciprocal. So you're going to multiply this by 25/16 and this by 25/16. Is exactly right. You guys are beautiful. First semester, you struggle through all this. Now you guys got this down. Just like that, right? Is exactly right. Okay. All right. Now here comes the next thing, right? All right. So you're now going to cancel 16 and 16, 25 and 25 over there, right? Okay, and you're going to get something that looks like this, right? Where here comes the canceling going on, right? So we should get what? Oh, let me extend the page a little bit here. You should get 25/16 x equals what? Y squared. There you go. Okay, what are you going to do now? Square root both of them. You're going to square root this and you're going to square root this. Okay, so you're going to get this. You're going to get, y equals, and then there's that, right? Okay, and you're going to get 5/4 square root of x, right? That equals y. And there's your inverse. You know it. Okay. Okay, so here's what they're going to say now. Okay, consider this function f of x equals 2x cubed plus 1, right? Determine whether the inverse f of x is a function and then find its inverse, right? Okay, so let's go find the inverse. Let's go find the inverse. Here we go. Here's the function. Okay. Right there. Okay, so what's step number 1? Switch the x and the y. This is the same thing over and over again. Switch the x and the y, right? There we go. Okay, what's step number 2? Y by itself, which is what do you do first? Subtract 1 from both sides. Subtract 1 from both sides. Here we go. Okay, subtract 1 from both sides. So what's step number 3? Divide everything by 2. You got it. Okay, so we got x minus 1. Well, let me go over here. There we go. Okay, x minus 1 over 2 equals y cubed. Okay, now what's the next thing we do? Cube root. Right, now you're going to cube root. Okay, so we're going to cube root, that, and cube root that. Okay, so now what's the cube root of y cubed? Y, right, which is what you're seeing. You got y. Okay, so you're going to write down y equals what? The cube root of what? X minus 1 over, you got the answer. There it is. That should be the inverse, right? Okay, everybody understand so far? Okay, pretty simple. Okay, so we stop. Because every year this happens. Every year this happens. We ask this question when you take the test over this whole unit, right? And tons of kids miss the question because they don't understand what's being asked. So I want you to understand, you really got to know how to do this. It's going to be asked to be on the test. And it's simple, but you just got to do the right thing. All right, so here's what you're being taught. In order to prove that these two things are inverses, right, you have to do this. You have to do f of g of x and show it equals x. Then you have to do g of f of x and show it equals x. Okay, so look what they're giving you for the problem. They're giving you this. F of x equals 3x minus 5. And f of negative 1 of x, which they're claiming is the inverse, is 1/3 x plus 5/3. Now they're asking you, show me that those are inverses, right? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do f of, here we go. We're going to do f of, let me get it here in a second. There you go, got it. Okay, we're going to do f of negative 1 of x. Okay, do you remember how to do that? That's first semester stuff. Okay, and you got it, it's right. Okay, you take this equation, the one on the inside, right, 1/3 x plus 5/3, and put it into x for the other one, for the f, right, the one on the outside. Okay, it's exactly right, that's what you guys are taught. Okay, so here we go. Here it comes, there's 3, now, and here comes x. So x is going to be replaced by what? 1/3 x plus 5/3, right? Like that. And then at the end, we put minus 5, right? Okay, now what's the next thing we do? Distribute the 3. So what's 3 times 1/3? 1x. 1x. Good job. Or just x, right? Here we go, just x. Okay, what's 3 times 5/3? It's plain old ordinary 5, plus 5. Okay, here we go, plus 5. And then what at the end? Minus 5, right? And then minus 5 at the end. Okay, now you tell me, combine your like terms, what do you get? You get x. It checks out. I got x, look in there. I put a little check mark there. Okay, that one equals x. Okay, now we're going to reverse the process. Instead of doing f of negative 1 of x, we're going to do f of negative 1 of f of x, right? Okay, so here comes that one in. Here comes f of negative 1 of f of x. Like that, right? Okay, so it's the same process, right? You're going to take f of x, 3x plus 5, and put it into x for the other one. Okay, so here we go doing it. 1/3. 1/3, there you are, okay. Now, 3x plus 5, 3x minus 5, okay, and then plus 5/3, like that. Okay, now what's the first thing we do? Distribute. So 1/3 times 3 is how much? 1x. 1x or x. Good job. Okay, 1x or x. There we go. 1x or x. Okay, 1/3 times negative 5 is what? Negative 5/3, right. And then what? Plus 5/3, right? And then plus 5/3. Like this. Okay, there you go. All right, combine your like terms. What do you get? You get x. Look at it. And you show that equals x also. So that checks out. So if this one equals x and this one equals x, then you can declare are the inverses. And like you would write down something like this. You could say they are inverses. Something like that. They proclaim, right? That's it. You done the problem.